AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after what she did to me over my engagement. So I, 28F, have a sister, Emily, 31F, who has always been a bit controlling. I've tried to shrug it off over the years, telling myself that sibling dynamics are messy and that sometimes people just have strong personalities. But after what happened last month, I honestly don't know if I can let it go this time. A little backstory first. Emily got married 5 years ago, and her wedding was pretty much a huge production. She spent months planning every detail and expected everyone to adhere to her vision. I was the maid of honor, which was an honor, obviously, but it also came with a lot of pressure. I ended up dropping a significant amount of money on dresses, travel, and other associated costs. I didn't mind because she's my sister, but it did feel exhausting. Fast forward to this year, I got engaged to my boyfriend, Alex, 30M, and obviously I was over the moon. I wanted to share the joy with my family, and Emily was the first person I told. I expected a typical congratulations moment. What I got instead was a lecture about how my wedding needed to reflect our family standards, how I should have waited to get engaged until she had finished her career milestones, and how my choice of ring was not classy enough. At first, I laughed it off, thinking she was joking, but she wasn't. She spent the next week sending me articles about perfect wedding aesthetics and subtly criticizing my dress choices before I had even bought anything. Now, Alex and I aren't having a big traditional wedding. We're planning something small and intimate, mostly immediate family and close friends, and the rest will be a small party later. We wanted something simple because we both hate stress and extravagance, and frankly, we don't have the budget for an over-the-top wedding. When Emily found out, she flipped. She called me crying and screaming at the same time, accusing me of humiliating the family and making her look bad in front of extended relatives. I tried to explain that this was our wedding and our decision, but she said she would never forgive me if I didn't conform to her vision. She even threatened to not come at all if I didn't do it right. At first, I thought maybe she just needed a vent and would come around. I tried to compromise on minor things. I showed her some dress options she might like, explained that we'd have a fancy cake for photos, and reassured her that I wanted her there. But she kept escalating, sending texts in all caps, making passive-aggressive comments on social media, and even suggesting that I shouldn't invite my parents unless I was ready to ruin their reputation. It was exhausting and honestly a little cruel. Finally, 2 weeks ago, Alex and I decided to set boundaries. I texted Emily calmly, explaining that we appreciated her opinion, but we had already made our plans and that she was welcome to attend if she respected our choices. I reminded her that weddings are about the couple, not other people's approval. Her response was intense. She accused me of throwing her out of her own family, being selfish and ungrateful, and even hinted that our relationship as sisters was over if I didn't change everything. She also started messaging my parents, claiming I was rebelling against the family and destroying family unity. I didn't respond further, but I knew things would get worse. 2 days later, she sent a group text to almost everyone on our invite list, saying that she couldn't in good conscience attend a wedding that disrespects family traditions, and that people should consider carefully whether they wanted to support her choices. She included photos of extravagant weddings she had curated for friends and distant relatives, implying we were making a mistake. At this point, Alex and I had had enough. We decided not to respond publicly and to keep the wedding small, as originally planned. But the thing that broke me was when she called me crying that night, saying she couldn't be in the same room as me because I embarrassed her, and that if I wanted her to attend, I needed to cancel the wedding and redo it her way. I told her calmly that I couldn't do that we had our hearts set on our plans, and that she was welcome to attend if she respected that. She then hung up and sent me a text saying she was cutting me off permanently. So now, here's the situation. Our wedding is in a month. Emily refuses to come. My parents are caught in the middle. They haven't outright picked sides, but are clearly stressed, and a few relatives are calling me to make peace with her. I feel hurt, obviously, because she's my sister and I wanted her to be there, but I also feel proud of standing my ground. I don't want to be forced into a wedding that isn't ours. I don't want to be manipulated emotionally, and I definitely don't want to be bullied into changing something as personal as how we celebrate our love. However, now a lot of people are asking me if I'm being unreasonable by refusing to appease her and if I should just give in a little for family harmony. Part of me wonders if I'm overreacting and being too rigid, but another part of me thinks that her behavior has crossed the line and she's the one being unreasonable. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister dictate my wedding and choosing not to cater to her emotional manipulations, even if it means she won't be there. I know this is long, but I wanted to include all context because there are so many layers here. I'm trying to be fair, but it genuinely feels like she's trying to control something that's mine and Alex's. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to pay for my brother's wedding after he insulted my fiancée. So, this is going to be a long one, and I'm still trying to process everything that happened. But here goes. I, 28M, have a younger brother, Matt, 25M, and we've always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, he was always a bit of a golden child in our parents' eyes, whereas I was expected to figure things out on my own. We get along fine now, but there's definitely a history of tension. Last year, Matt got engaged to his long-term girlfriend, Sarah. I'm very close to my fiancée, Jenna, 27F, and we've been together for 5 years. Jenna is kind, smart, and honestly, the most patient person I've ever met, which she needs to be around my family sometimes. When Matt got engaged, he asked me to be his best man, which I was happy to do. I was excited, actually. I thought it would be a chance to mend fences with him and have some fun planning the wedding. Here's where things started to go sideways. Matt and Sarah decided on a big, expensive wedding, and in a moment of what I now realize was poor planning, they asked me to contribute financially. Not just cover my own expenses, but to help pay for part of the catering and the venue because we're family and it's customary. I was taken aback. Normally, I would contribute to a wedding gift and cover my own travel and lodging, but being asked to pay for hundreds, possibly thousands of dollars for the actual wedding seemed off. I voiced my concern gently, and Matt got defensive. He said, "It's not a big deal. Families help each other. Don't be cheap." I didn't want to cause a fight, so I agreed to pay part of the catering, about $500, thinking that was reasonable. Fast forward a few months to the wedding planning party. My fiancée, Jenna, came along because she was helping me pick out my suit and also to meet some of Matt's friends. Everything was fine until Matt decided to vent about his frustrations with me helping with the wedding money. He said, "I don't get why you're acting like this. You have a decent job. Jenna probably earns something too, and yet you're stingy about a wedding that's for family. Maybe she's not worth it if you can't even support your brother." I froze. Did he just insult Jenna? Out loud? In front of everyone? I tried to laugh it off, but he doubled down, saying, "Yeah, I don't know how you put up with her, honestly. Maybe that's why you're scared to spend real money on things that matter." I was furious. Not only did he insult my fiancée, but he tried to frame me as the bad guy for not wanting to throw thousands at his wedding. Jenna was calm, but clearly hurt. She tried to redirect the conversation, but Matt kept pushing, calling her a penny pincher influencer wannabe, and other things that made me want to explode. I told Matt to stop, and he got angry, claiming I was overreacting. At that point, I walked out of the party with Jenna. I spent the next day thinking about what had happened. I realized that I couldn't support a wedding financially or emotionally if my brother and his fiancée were going to insult my fiancée and treat me like I was a bad person for setting boundaries. A few weeks later, I called Matt and told him I wasn't going to contribute any more money. I told him the insults crossed a line and that I would be happy to attend the wedding, but that I could not and would not pay for things. He blew up on me. He accused me of being selfish, of trying to ruin his big day, and even told my parents that I was being disrespectful and undermining family unity. My parents called me, furious that I refused to pay. I explained everything, including how Matt insulted Jenna. They said, "You could have just brushed it off and paid, and everyone would have been happy. Now you're making it about a fight, instead of family. I tried to tell them that it wasn't about money, it was about respect, but they weren't hearing it. The wedding happened last month. I went, but I kept my distance from Matt and Sarah. They were polite, but icy, and it was tense the entire time. Jenna and I stuck together, but it felt like walking on eggshells. I later found out that Matt had told several of his friends that I was the jerk for not paying and that I had ruined the vibe of the wedding, which hurt because I tried my best to enjoy it despite everything. Now, a week after the wedding, my family keeps calling me to ask why I didn't contribute and saying I'm selfish and disrespectful. Matt hasn't spoken to me since the wedding, and Sarah blocked me on social media. Jenna keeps telling me I did the right thing, but I can't shake this feeling that maybe I overreacted. I know it's my brother's big day, but is it unreasonable to not pay for someone else's wedding when they insult my fiancé and push me into paying beyond my means? So, AITA for refusing to pay for my brother's wedding after he insulted my fiancé? Characters, 6,482. AITA for refusing to cover my sister's wedding after she insulted my fiancé in front of our family? So, this all started a few months ago, and I still can't believe how it escalated. I, 29F, have a younger sister, Emma, 26F, and we have always had a kind of competitive but close relationship. We grew up in a very traditional household where appearances were everything, so I guess some of that rubbed off on us. I'm usually more laid back, and Emma is not. She's very high-strung and extremely particular about things. A little backstory: my fiancé, Daniel, 31M, and I have been together for about 4 years. Daniel is wonderful. He's kind, funny, smart, and my family likes him, mostly. He's not super flashy or ambitious in a look-at-me way, and Emma has always been a little dismissive of him, but I never thought she'd openly insult him. So here's what happened. My sister got engaged about a year ago, and her wedding planning quickly became a full-blown production. She wanted everything to be perfect, down to the tiniest detail, which is fine, I get that, but she started expecting the whole family to bend over backward for her. She's also notorious for inviting people she doesn't really like just because it's expected, which is another thing that frustrates me. The problem started during the initial family meeting about her wedding plans. She was showing off her wedding dress, talking about the venue, the cake, all of it. Daniel and I were sitting together, listening. Out of nowhere, Emma looks at Daniel and says, "Are you seriously wearing that to our wedding? You look like you just rolled out of bed. And your tie is terrible. Why do you even bother?" Everyone at the table froze. I wanted to disappear into the floor. Daniel tried to laugh it off, but you could see he was hurt. I was angry, but I didn't say anything right then because my parents usually smooth things over. They told Emma she was being harsh, but she waved it off and kept talking about other details. I thought that was the end of it, but then she started subtly undermining Daniel in other ways, commenting on his boring job, questioning my decision to live with him, making snide remarks about his hobbies like they were childish. I tried to brush it off, but it kept building. Fast forward to a few weeks ago. Emma asked me to help with some wedding tasks, mostly things like addressing invitations, choosing decorations, and helping with seating arrangements. I agreed because I love my sister and I wanted her day to be special. But during one of these planning sessions, she pulled me aside and said, very seriously, Daniel's presence at this wedding is optional. I really don't think he fits in with our family vibe. Honestly, it might ruin the photos. You might want to reconsider bringing him. I couldn't believe it. I told her flat out that Daniel was coming, and he was my fiancé, and if she had a problem with that, she could deal with it. She laughed and said, "I'm just trying to help you not make a mistake." That was the last straw. The next day, I called my parents to vent, and my mom told me I should just be polite and not make waves. I understand keeping peace, but I felt like this was beyond polite. So, when Emma officially sent out invitations and included Daniel, I made the decision to not participate in anything that involved her trying to demean him. I stopped helping with planning, I didn't go to dress fittings, and I didn't offer any assistance. When she found out, she was furious. She called me repeatedly. Texts escalated to yelling. And finally, she cornered me at a family brunch and said, "I can't believe you're choosing your fiancé over your family. This is about me, not him. How could you be so selfish?" I told her I wasn't being selfish. I was standing up for my partner. I also pointed out that her repeated insults crossed a line, and I couldn't just pretend everything was fine for the sake of her perfect wedding. My parents tried to mediate, but Emma refused to listen. Now, here's where it gets even messy, eh? Emma told everyone in the family that I was refusing to support her big day and painting me as the villain. Some extended family members are now upset with me, and I've had a few awkward conversations where they side with her, saying things like, "She's your sister, you should just help her, and it's one day. Can't you just let it go?" I honestly feel like I'm being reasonable. Daniel is my fiancé, and he deserves to be treated with respect. I was willing to attend the wedding, but I refused to participate in planning or anything where I'd have to be around her demeaning him. Emma keeps insisting I'm overreacting and that I should just grin and bear it for the sake of family harmony. I haven't told Daniel the full extent of Emma's comments because I didn't want him to feel worse, but he does know why I stepped back. He's supportive, but he's also frustrated that our family seems to be pressuring me to fix things with Emma when it feels like all the effort should come from her side. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to cover my sister's wedding planning and basically stepping back from her wedding after she insulted my fiancé repeatedly. I feel like I'm protecting my relationship and my dignity, but everyone keeps telling me I'm being dramatic and should just suck it up. I've considered attending only the ceremony and staying out of all other events, but even that feels like giving in to her bullying. I just want a wedding where my fiancé is respected and I can enjoy my sister's special day without tension. But right now, I feel like that's impossible. I know families can be complicated, but I really need an honest perspective. Am I really the jerk here for standing my ground, or am I overreacting? Character count, 6,438. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she insulted my children in front of the whole family. So, this is going to be a long one, but I really need some perspective because my family thinks I overreacted, and honestly, I'm not sure anymore. I, 38F, have 2 kids, ages 10 and 7. My younger sister, Emily, 35F, is getting married in 2 months. From the beginning, I knew the wedding planning was going to be a bit chaotic. Emily has always been controlling and tend to take things personally, but I didn't expect things to spiral this far. The trouble started about a month ago when Emily called me to discuss seating arrangements. She said she wanted a small, elegant wedding, no children running around, ruining the aesthetic. I have always encouraged my kids to behave politely in public, but Emily didn't even ask. She just assumed they'd be a problem. I reminded her that my kids are well-behaved, but she just said, it's not about whether they're well-behaved, it's about the vibe I want for my special day. I tried to negotiate, suggesting they could be at the ceremony and then have someone entertain them at a kids' table during the reception. She flat out refused. Okay, I thought, maybe it's her day, so I didn't push too hard. But then last week, during a family dinner meant to iron out final details, Emily went off on me in front of our parents, her fiancé, and a few relatives. She said, and I quote, "I just don't understand why you insist on bringing your kids everywhere. Don't you care that they embarrass you and ruin important moments? I just can't imagine anyone wanting them at a sophisticated event like this." I was stunned. My kids have been sitting quietly at the table, and even my mom, who is usually neutral, looked uncomfortable. I tried to respond calmly, saying, "They're my children, and I expect them to behave. I don't think that's something to insult in front of everyone." Emily just rolled her eyes and said, "Well, if you can't see the problem, maybe you shouldn't be here." I left the dinner early, and my parents tried to mediate afterward. They said I should apologize at least for the drama, and that I should go to the wedding for family unity's sake. I refused. I explained that I wasn't going to bring my kids into an environment where they were explicitly unwelcome and insulted. My husband, 40M, supports me, and he said he wouldn't go either if it meant our kids would be treated like outcasts. Since then, Emily has been sending increasingly passive-aggressive messages. "I guess you and your kids won't be there to support me on my special day. It's sad you're putting your children's feelings above family, and don't be surprised if your parents are upset you don't come." My parents have called me stubborn and childish for not attending. Even my aunt, who is usually on my side, said that maybe I should make a small sacrifice for Emily. I'm really torn because part of me feels guilty for not attending. I love my sister, and I've been there for her in every milestone of her life. But at the same time, I can't in good conscience bring my kids to a place where they've already been insulted and made to feel unwelcome. I even offered alternatives, like a private family dinner after the wedding or attending the ceremony via live stream, but Emily dismissed all of them, saying, "That's not the same as being there for me." My husband thinks I'm completely justified, but I'm worried that I might be overreacting or letting my emotions control my decision. I've been losing sleep over this because I don't want to damage our relationship permanently, but at the same time, I can't ignore how hurtful her words were. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she insulted my children in front of everyone. I feel like I'm protecting my kids, but I also feel like I'm letting the situation escalate. I just don't know if standing my ground here makes me the bad person. I want to emphasize that my kids are genuinely polite and loving. My eldest loves reading quietly during events, and my youngest enjoys drawing at the table. They have never caused a scene in public or at family gatherings. The fact that Emily would make such a pointed, public remark about them makes me feel like there's more going on than just wedding planning stress. Like she's intentionally trying to create drama or assert control. Since this all started, our family group chat has been a war zone. Messages from my parents alternate between, "You need to apologize for not being there," and "We're disappointed in you." I haven't responded to most of them because I know I'd get sucked into an argument. My mom did call me last night, saying, "Your sister is crying, and you're making her feel like she has no one to support her on her wedding day. Can't you just suck it up for one day?" I tried explaining that emotional manipulation is not a healthy reason to bring children into an environment where they are explicitly unwelcome, but she said, "You're twisting this. Emily just wants family around her. It's not about the kids." I find it hard to believe this because of the way Emily phrased her insult so publicly. I also considered sending my kids with a babysitter or leaving them at home with my husband while I attend, but I can't do that either. Emily insulted the idea of my children being there, not just their behavior, so even showing up solo feels like it would validate her message. I keep replaying the dinner in my head, and I feel angry, hurt, and frustrated. I love my sister, and I want her to have a wonderful wedding, but I also want my kids to feel valued and safe. My husband keeps telling me that we're doing the right thing by setting boundaries, but every family call or message makes me feel like I'm being painted as the villain. I don't know if I should just attend to keep the peace or if refusing is the correct stance. Emily's comments felt cruel, calculated, and unnecessary, and I feel like attending after that would send the wrong message to my children about standing up for themselves and our family values. So, Reddit, AITA here, character count, 6,582. AITA for refusing to pay for my brother's wedding when my parents insisted I should. So, this is going to be a long one, but I'll try to be as clear as possible. I, 28M, had a younger brother, Alex, 25M, who got engaged about 6 months ago. Our family has always been very close, but there's a long-standing issue with money and expectations that I've tried to navigate carefully. Our parents, let's call them Mark and Susan, have always had a very old-fashioned approach. They believe that the older sibling should financially help the younger sibling in big life events like weddings. It's something they never explicitly demanded when I got married 3 years ago, but apparently they always assumed I would know the drill when it came to Alex. Fast forward to now, Alex and his fiancée, Lily, are planning a wedding for next summer. They've decided on a fairly lavish event, around 150 guests, rented venue, catered dinner, the works. It's very dream wedding style and obviously expensive. My parents sat me down a couple months ago and told me that they expected me to contribute a significant portion of the costs, in addition to paying for my own expenses as a guest. When I asked them for specifics, they said something like, "Well, enough to show you're a responsible older brother, maybe around $10,000. I was floored. I make a decent salary, but $10,000 is not something I can just throw around without seriously affecting my savings and financial goals. I explained this to my parents. I tried to compromise with something like $2,000 to $3,000, which I thought was more reasonable. They immediately got defensive and said I was selfish and not a real brother. I reminded them that I paid for my own wedding, and Alex's wedding is his responsibility. But they kept insisting that older siblings are supposed to help, citing family tradition and the fact that I'm financially better off than Alex. I then talked to Alex directly, hoping he might understand my position. Surprisingly, he did. He told me he didn't want me to feel pressured to pay anything beyond covering my own costs, and that he and Lily could manage the wedding with their own finances. I felt relieved, and I told my parents that this was what Alex wanted, and I would not be giving $10,000. That's when the situation really escalated. My parents became furious. They accused me of trying to ruin the wedding, of being greedy, and even suggested that if I didn't pay, I was being disrespectful to the family. They went as far as saying that I shouldn't expect to be included in the family photos or given a role in the ceremony. Essentially, they were using guilt as leverage. Things came to a head last week. We had a family meeting, and it turned into a shouting match. I tried to calmly explain that I love Alex. I want to be there for him, but I cannot and will not pay $10,000 for a wedding. I reminded them that Alex and Lily explicitly said they didn't want or need that, and that I'm already contributing in the ways I can, helping with decorations, planning ideas, even offering to help with certain DIY projects. My parents ignored all of that and kept repeating how I was failing as a brother. After that, I left the meeting and haven't spoken to my parents much, other than necessary logistical stuff regarding the wedding. Alex and Lily are fully supportive, and they're still happy to have me involved in the wedding planning and events. My friends have been supportive too, telling me my parents are being unreasonable, but my parents' argument is that they're only trying to uphold family tradition. Here's where I start wondering if I'm actually the asshole. On one hand, I feel like I'm being unfairly pressured into giving money I simply cannot afford. On the other hand, I can see how my parents might feel like I'm breaking a tradition and maybe I'm not living up to what they think an older sibling should do. My brother isn't mad at me, and neither is his fiancée, but my parents have stopped talking to me except for angry texts. I honestly want to be part of the wedding and support Alex in every way I can without handing over a huge chunk of my savings. I'm just struggling with whether I'm being completely unreasonable by refusing to pay the amount my parents are demanding. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to pay for my brother's wedding when my parents insist I should. AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding after she accused me of ruining her engagement photos. I, 32F, have a sister, Rachel, 28F, who has always been difficult, to put it mildly. Growing up, she was the classic perfect child type, straight A's, captain of the cheer squad, prom queen, the whole package. I was more introverted, artsy, and generally left to my own devices. Our relationship has always been a mix of love and passive-aggressive tension. A few months ago, Rachel got engaged to her fiancé, Mark, 30M. Mark is a genuinely nice guy, and I like him a lot. From the start, Rachel's wedding plans were extreme. She wanted a destination wedding, a 12-piece string quartet, and a photo shoot at sunrise on a private beach in Hawaii. She asked me to host the wedding at my house because it has that classy vibe she can't get anywhere else. I live in a suburban house that's fine, but not exactly a luxury venue. I told her I wasn't comfortable hosting the wedding at my home. It's a regular house, my yard isn't huge, and I have a small dog who doesn't handle crowds well. Rachel insisted, saying that the photos would look amazing there. It would be more meaningful because it's my sister's home. I reluctantly said I'd consider it if we could make accommodations for the dog and hire a professional event planner to manage logistics. Fast forward 2 months, Rachel and Mark come over for a walkthrough. She immediately starts criticizing everything: the furniture, the wall colors, the lighting, the garden layout. I try to stay calm, but it felt like nothing I had was ever good enough. I suggested that maybe it would be easier to rent a proper venue, but she was adamant. She claimed I was being dramatic and not supportive. Then came the engagement photo disaster. Rachel hired a professional photographer, and they insisted on taking photos in my backyard. Before the shoot, I warned them that the garden was still a mess from last fall, and there were patches of mud, uneven grass, and my dog's toys scattered around. Rachel brushed it off, saying I was too picky, and she wanted a natural look. During the shoot, my dog got loose and ran into the frame multiple times. Mark tried to grab him. Rachel yelled at me for not controlling him, and the photographer got frustrated. To make things worse, Rachel had laid out an expensive bouquet on a garden table that my dog knocked over, ruining the flowers. The photographer called it a chaotic setting and said they could still work with it, but Rachel was furious. She immediately sent me a long text saying I ruined her engagement photos and that I was impossible to live with. I was shocked. I had warned her about the backyard and the dog, and I had even suggested renting a professional venue. She ignored all my advice, and now she was blaming me. I replied that it wasn't fair to put the blame on me when I had been clear about the situation. She didn't reply, but later that evening, she called our mom and told her that I was sabotaging her wedding. Mom tried to mediate, but Rachel was relentless. The situation escalated when she insisted I host the wedding. I finally said no. I explained that I couldn't deal with her micromanaging every little detail. I didn't want to put myself in a situation where she would blame me for anything that went wrong. Rachel exploded. She accused me of being selfish, unsupportive, and said that if I didn't host the wedding, she would never forgive me. She also mentioned that Mark would probably leave her if I didn't comply, which felt manipulative. I offered alternatives. I could help her find a venue, contribute financially, and assist with planning in other ways. But she refused. She kept insisting that my house was the only option and that if I refused, I was destroying family bonds. Our mom is now upset with me too, saying I should make sacrifices for my sister. My friends are split. Some say I'm right for setting boundaries, while others think I should just host the wedding to keep the peace. I feel like Rachel has always had a tendency to put her needs above everyone else's, and this situation seems like another example. I don't think I'm being unreasonable. I tried to accommodate her ideas. I warned her about the potential issues, and I even offered alternatives. But she refuses to take responsibility for her own choices and now is trying to guilt me into hosting a big event in my home. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding after she accused me of ruining her engagement photos. AITA for refusing to cover my sister's expensive wedding after she embarrassed me in front of our family. I, 32F, have a younger sister, Clara, 28F, and we've always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, she was the favorite of our parents, and while I've mostly moved past it, certain things still sting. I've always tried to be supportive of her life milestones, but this situation recently escalated in a way I wasn't prepared for. Clara got engaged about a year ago. Her fiancé, Mark, is from a wealthy family, and she immediately started planning a lavish wedding. When she told me she wanted to invite 200 people to a destination wedding in Italy, I was honestly shocked. I have a decent income, but my lifestyle is nowhere near what hers requires for events like this. She hinted that she expected me to contribute financially, and while I'm close to my sister, I don't have the funds to cover a significant portion of an overseas wedding. I told her I could help in other ways, planning, coordinating, maybe contributing a modest amount, but that I couldn't foot the kind of bill she was suggesting. She seemed fine with that at first, but then things took a turn. At a family dinner where both sides of the family were present, she made a comment that I couldn't even contribute enough to show I care, while laughing in a way that was obviously directed to embarrass me. Everyone at the table went silent, and I felt humiliated. My parents tried to smooth it over, but I could tell they were uncomfortable. I tried to laugh it off and left the dinner early. After that incident, she started sending me messages almost daily, reminding me how important it was that I contribute, how family is supposed to help each other, and even hinting that my absence would be noticed by her guests. It reached a point where she was almost guilt-tripping me in front of mutual friends. I finally sent her a firm message saying that I would attend the wedding, I would help in planning where I could, but I was not going to give her money beyond a reasonable gift. I also reminded her that public humiliation was not acceptable. She went silent for a week, then called me. She started crying and accusing me of being selfish and ruining her dreams. She said that our parents were disappointed in me and that I had a responsibility as her sister to contribute financially. I stood my ground and said that my financial situation was my responsibility, not hers, and that love and support do not have a price tag. She hung up, calling me cold and heartless. The drama didn't stop there. She has since posted on social media, implying that family members are refusing to support her wedding, tagging me indirectly. She also asked our parents to talk to me, who, while sympathetic, told me it was my decision to make and not to cave under pressure. Now, the tension has escalated so much that I feel like I'm walking on eggshells every time I have contact with my family. Clara has made it clear that she feels betrayed, and some relatives have hinted that maybe I should have done more. Meanwhile, I've been anxious and stressed because I genuinely want a good relationship with my sister, but I also don't want to be manipulated or financially exploited. Here's where I think the AITA judgment comes in. I know some people believe that families should help each other financially for big events, especially weddings, and that maybe I could have contributed a little more to avoid conflict. On the other hand, the way she has treated me, publicly shaming, pressuring, and guilting me, is making me question whether I'm wrong for sticking to my boundaries. I do plan to attend the wedding. I'm still helping where I can in planning, and I've even offered to cover a small part like organizing the rehearsal dinner or helping with invitations. But beyond that, I'm firm on not giving a large sum of money, and I won't tolerate humiliation or pressure. I feel conflicted because I don't want to lose my sister, but I also don't want to compromise my financial stability or let her manipulate me. I've reached out to a couple of friends who think I'm in the right, but others say I should just pay up to keep the peace. I wanted to see what Reddit thinks. So, AITA for refusing to cover my sister's expensive wedding after she embarrassed me in front of our family. AITA for refusing to let my husband's sister and her kids move in with us indefinitely, even though my husband thinks I'm overreacting. I, 33F, have been married to my husband, Tom, 35M, for 7 years. We have a 7-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son. We live in a 3-bedroom townhouse that we bought 2 years ago. We both work full-time. I'm a nurse, and Tom is an engineer. Our house isn't huge, but it's comfortable for the 4 of us. We've worked hard to create routines that keep the kids' schedules, chores, and our work-from-home days manageable. Tom has a younger sister, Lily, 31F, who has 2 kids, age 5 and 2. Lily has had a history of unstable living situations. She's moved several times in the past few years due to financial instability and arguments with roommates. She recently left her apartment after being evicted for not paying rent and came to Tom asking if she and her kids could move in for a while until things settled down. Tom immediately said yes without asking me first. I was shocked because our house isn't set up for 6 people living long-term, and I knew this could cause serious tension and logistical problems. I told Tom that I wasn't comfortable with her moving in indefinitely. I explained that our house was already full, our routines would be disrupted, and having another adult plus 2 children would strain both our space and resources. I offered alternatives, helping Lily find a short-term rental, helping cover deposits or first month's rent, and helping her look for a job or childcare options. I also suggested that if she absolutely needed to stay, it could be for a clearly defined period, like 1 week, while we figured out a more permanent plan. Tom got upset and said I was being unsympathetic and that family comes first. He said I was overthinking and that it would be fine for Lily to stay. I told him it was not about being unsympathetic. It was about managing the household responsibly. He said I was making it a problem and that I needed to stop prioritizing comfort over family. Lily arrived the next day with her 2 kids, clearly expecting to stay for an extended period. At first, things were manageable. She stayed in the guest room. The kids slept on an air mattress in the living room, and she mostly kept to herself. But within a few days, it became clear that this was going to be far from temporary. She started leaving dishes in the sink, using her groceries without asking, and letting her kids run around unsupervised while I was trying to cook or work. She also began giving unsolicited advice about how I parent my children, often contradicting my established rules and routines. I tried to set boundaries politely. I told her she needed to help with chores, respect our routines, and not take our food or household items without asking. She would agree, but then ignore the rules. Tom would sometimes excuse her behavior, saying she's just stressed, cut her some slack. I explained that this wasn't just stress, It was a disregard for our household and responsibilities. He said I was being too harsh and needed to let her adjust. The situation worsened when Lily started inviting friends over without asking, using our car to run errands, and leaving her children in my care for longer periods than I was comfortable with while she went out. I told her this was not acceptable and that she needed to find childcare or watch her kids herself. She accused me of being mean and unsupportive, and Tom again sided with her, saying I was creating tension for no reason. I also tried to get Tom on board with a clear timeline. I told him that I could manage a short-term stay. If we agreed, she would find her own place within a week or two. He refused, saying, "We can't just throw her out after a week. She needs family." I tried explaining that helping her indefinitely in our small home was not realistic and would eventually hurt both households emotionally. He said I was being selfish and that if I loved him and the family, I would make it work. Our home is now very tense. The kids are starting to pick up on the stress. Tom and I argue multiple times a day about how to handle Lily, and I feel exhausted from constantly enforcing rules and boundaries that aren't being respected. I've tried helping her find housing, offering financial support for a deposit, and even helping her search for jobs, but Tom keeps insisting that letting her stay is the right thing. Friends and some family have told me I'm right to set boundaries and protect my immediate family. Others say I should just open the door and trust Lily to adapt. I feel guilty, but I also feel trapped and frustrated. I love my nieces, I love my sister-in-law, and I want to help, but I can't compromise the stability of my household indefinitely. So, AITA for refusing to let my husband's sister and her kids move in indefinitely, even though my husband thinks I'm overreacting and says I'm being selfish. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancée plan our family Christmas after she insulted my cooking and tried to control our holiday traditions. I, 31F, come from a fairly tight-knit family. My parents are divorced, but they have always managed to coordinate family holidays so that everyone gets together at least once a year. My younger brother, Jason, 29M, has been dating his fiancée, Samantha, 27F, for about 2 years. Samantha is very particular about everything and has a very strong personality, which I tolerated at first, but it's starting to become a problem, especially around family events. Our family's Christmas tradition is fairly simple but meaningful. We cook a big dinner in my parents' house, exchange gifts, and everyone contributes in small ways, bringing a dish, helping decorate, or preparing a game. I've always helped cook the main meal, and for the past few years, I've organized a secret Santa among the cousins. This year, my parents asked me to host Christmas in my apartment because my mom will be traveling, and I happily agreed. I told my brother and his fiancée that we would cook, decorate, and host as usual, and that everyone could contribute whatever they liked. About a month ago, Samantha started sending me long messages about how Christmas should really be done. She told me that our family traditions were outdated and that I was overcomplicating everything with my cooking and gift ideas. She suggested that I let her take over the planning because she knows how to make things fun and modern. I tried to be polite and said that we already had a system that worked for everyone, but she persisted. She then sent me a detailed plan, including a different menu, different decorations, and even a schedule for when everyone should arrive. She ended her message by saying, "I just don't want anyone to feel disappointed this year because of your limited planning skills." I was stunned. I told my brother that Samantha was overstepping and that her tone was insulting. Jason laughed it off and said she was just trying to help, but I reminded him that family traditions are meaningful and shouldn't be taken over by someone who openly criticizes the people hosting. I also said that I would be happy to take her input if it was respectful and collaborative, but I would not allow her to control the holiday. Things escalated when she visited my apartment unannounced to see where things could be improved. She criticized my living room decorations, told me my Christmas tree looked cheap, and said the kitchen was not festive enough. I calmly asked her to leave, explaining that I felt disrespected and that I was capable of hosting the event myself. She left, but later called my parents to complain that I was being unreasonable and not letting her contribute. My parents, caught in the middle, suggested a compromise where she could help set the table or bring a dish. I agreed reluctantly, thinking it would make everyone happy. On the day of Christmas, Samantha brought two of her friends without telling anyone and rearranged the seating plan to match her vision. She openly criticized the meal I'd spent hours preparing, saying things like, "I would have done it differently, but I guess this is fine for simple tastes." I felt humiliated, especially as several family members looked uncomfortable. Jason tried to intervene, but Samantha brushed him off. After dinner, Samantha complained loudly that the Secret Santa game was childish and insisted on changing the rules mid-game. She also made several comments about my gifts being cheap and uninspired. At that point, I finally told her that her behavior was unacceptable and that she had overstepped by showing up unannounced, bringing friends without permission, criticizing the food, and trying to change our family traditions. She argued that I was being too controlling and didn't want anyone to have fun. Jason again told me that he thought it was fine, but I reminded him that I was hosting in my home and that I had the final say. Since then, Samantha has been sending me passive-aggressive messages about how I ruined Christmas and can't take advice. Jason has also started avoiding me, saying that I need to be more flexible for family harmony. Meanwhile, some relatives have privately told me they think Samantha was rude and that I handled it well. I feel torn because I don't want to escalate the situation or alienate my brother, but I also feel like I was completely justified in standing up for my home, my cooking, and our family traditions. I'm considering refusing to include Samantha in future holiday planning altogether, but I worry that might cause long-term tension with Jason and possibly divide the family. I've tried explaining that respect and collaboration are fine, but criticism and control are not, yet she seems to think that her ideas are superior simply because she's new to the family. So, AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancée plan our family Christmas after she insulted my cooking and tried to control our holiday traditions. AITA for refusing to help my sister after she financially ruined herself and now expects me to bail her out. I, 32F, have always been the responsible sibling. I have a stable career, live within my means, and have been able to save some money over the years. My younger sister, Jess, 28F, has a very different approach to life. She's creative, fun, and spontaneous, but also reckless with money and prone to making impulsive decisions. For context, Jess has a long history of financial irresponsibility. She's been through several short-term jobs, has maxed out credit cards multiple times, and has declared bankruptcy once in her early 20s. Despite this, she's incredibly charming and can convince almost anyone to lend her money or co-sign something. My parents have helped her financially more times than I can count, and frankly, I've tried to stay out of it because I don't want to enable bad habits. A few months ago, Jess moved to a bigger city to pursue a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to start her own event planning business. She barely had savings, but convinced herself that she could make it work. Of course, things didn't go as planned. She took out multiple loans to rent a larger apartment, pay for marketing, and hire a small team of people she met online. Within 2 months, she realized she was completely over her head. She couldn't pay her staff, she had no clients yet, and she was falling behind on rent and utility bills. That's what she called me. She was frantic and tearful, telling me that she didn't know what to do, and that if I didn't help her, she might lose everything. She wanted me to lend her $10,000 to cover her immediate bills and get her through the next 3 months while she tried to build her business. I was shocked. I've always been willing to help in emergencies, but $10,000 is not a small amount, and I knew that giving her that money could potentially be a disaster. I told her honestly that I couldn't lend her that much. I offered to help in other ways, like helping her make a realistic budget, negotiating with her landlord, or helping her find short-term work to get through the next few months. Jess was furious. She said I was being selfish and unsupportive, and that if I truly loved her, I would help her financially. She even accused me of treating her like a child and trying to control her life. Things escalated when she started sending me messages constantly. Every day, she'd send me a long text about her struggles, often ending with, "Please just help me," You're my only hope. I tried to stay patient, but after a few weeks, I stopped responding to her messages immediately. When I finally did, I reiterated that I couldn't give her $10,000 but could help her find other solutions. Then, last week, she did something that pushed me over the edge. She showed up at my apartment unannounced with a suitcase and said she was moving in with me temporarily until she got back on her feet. I was shocked and said no. My apartment is small, and I have my own responsibilities and bills. She started crying and accused me of abandoning her, saying, "After everything I've done for you, you won't even let me stay for a week?" I stayed calm but firm. I told her that I care about her, but I have boundaries and can't put my own financial stability and personal space at risk. She left angrily and has since been posting passive-aggressive messages on social media about how my heartless sister won't help her, which has caused tension among our mutual friends. I've been getting mixed responses from my family. My parents say that while I'm not obligated to give her money, I could at least compromise and help her with part of her debt or let her stay a night or two. My friends are mostly supportive, saying I'm right to set boundaries. Jess, on the other hand, is furious and refuses to talk to me unless I promise to give her what she wants. Honestly, I feel guilty sometimes because she is my sister and clearly in a very stressful situation, but I also feel like if I give in, I'm just enabling her destructive habits. I'm worried that any financial support I provide could become a recurring expectation and damage our relationship even further in the long run. I want to help her in a meaningful way, like teaching her to manage money or helping her find stable work, but she refuses to accept anything other than a financial handout. I feel trapped between wanting to support her and protecting myself from a situation I know is likely to spiral out of control. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to give my sister $10,000 and for not letting her move into my apartment while she gets back on her feet. AITA for refusing to let my younger brother live with me after our parents died, and now everyone in the family thinks I'm cruel. I, 32M, recently lost both of my parents within 6 months, which has been devastating. My younger brother, Alex, 25M, has always been a bit of a free spirit. He's creative and smart, but has never really held a steady job and has a habit of living off other people's generosity. When our parents passed, Alex immediately started hinting that he wanted to move in with me. I was blindsided, honestly. My place isn't enormous. It's a 2-bedroom apartment, and I live a fairly structured life with routines I rely on to stay productive and sane. I told him outright that I didn't think it would be a good idea. I explained that I work long hours, I need quiet to focus, and my apartment isn't really set up for someone else to just move in. I also reminded him that he has a small savings account and could look for his own place. He wasn't happy with my answer, but I thought that would be the end of it. Unfortunately, it wasn't. A few days after our parents' funeral, Alex started calling and texting nonstop. At first, I tried to be patient, but he kept pressing the point. He's been through some rough patches emotionally, and I understand he's grieving, but it felt like he was trying to guilt me into letting him move in. Then things escalated. He sent me a message saying that everyone in the family agreed he should stay with me, and that I was being selfish. I called some of my cousins and aunts to get their perspective, and while most of them were neutral, a few started dropping subtle comments about how I should step up for my brother. One aunt even said that I was abandoning my family obligations. I decided to dig in. I made a few suggestions. I offered to help him financially for the first few months to find a place. I offered to help him apply for jobs, and I offered to spend more time with him during the week. I told him he could come visit anytime, but moving in was an option. Alex was furious. He accused me of turning my back on him and said that our parents would have been disappointed in me. After that, it became almost every family event. My cousins, uncles, and aunts would make subtle jabs about my refusal, and my parents' friends would sometimes drop by and ask if Alex was living with me yet. Every gathering started to feel like a trial. I felt trapped because any disagreement made me feel like the villain. The tension reached a peak when Alex showed up at my apartment one weekend unannounced. He said he couldn't afford a place and begged to stay, just until I get back on my feet. I reminded him firmly that I had already said no and that he needed to respect my boundaries. He got upset, stomped out, and later sent a message saying, "You're my family. I don't know how you can treat me like this." I realized that the longer I let him think he could convince me, the more he would try. I even had to change some of my locks for a few days because he was showing up in my building lobby. Here's where I start feeling unsure. A few weeks ago, our extended family called a family meeting without telling me beforehand. They basically told me I was being cruel and selfish for not letting Alex live with me. They said I was choosing comfort over family, and that I should consider how lonely he might feel. One cousin flat out said, "He's your brother. You owe him this." I stood my ground, explaining that I love Alex and want him to succeed, but I have my own responsibilities and boundaries. I reiterated that moving in together wouldn't be good for either of us, and that helping him find his own path was healthier in the long run. I thought that would end the argument, but it didn't. My family has now started cutting me off socially, and Alex sends messages that are increasingly hostile, sometimes implying that I'm heartless or that I'm a bad brother. To be clear, I don't refuse to help him. I've helped him financially in small ways. I helped him move into a short-term rental. I check in on him regularly, and I make time to hang out. I just don't want him living with me because I genuinely believe it would create tension, resentment, and stress for both of us. I've tried explaining this multiple times, but it feels like no one is listening. Everyone seems to assume that love for your family means giving them unlimited access to your home, which I don't agree with. My friends are split. Some say I'm doing the right thing by setting boundaries, and others say I'm being too harsh. So, AITA for refusing to let my brother live with me after our parents' deaths, even though everyone in the family is pressuring me to do so. AITA for refusing to let my mother move in with me after she quit her job, even though my partner thinks I'm being cruel. I, 29F, have been with my partner, Alex, 31M, for 6 years, and we live together in a 2-bedroom apartment in a city that's not cheap. We both work full-time. I'm in marketing, and Alex works in tech. Our apartment is cozy, but organized around the two of us. We don't have extra bedrooms or much storage space, and we value our routines and personal space since we both work from home a few days a week. My mother, Susan, 57F, has always had a history of making impulsive financial and life decisions. She recently quit her job as an administrative assistant without another job lined up, saying she was tired of the corporate grind and needed a change. She contacted me soon after, saying she couldn't afford her rent anymore and needed somewhere to stay temporarily until she figured things out. She specifically asked if she could move in with me and Alex. I was initially shocked and stressed. I love my mom, but she has a pattern of staying with people for long periods, often longer than she initially promises, and it has caused tension in the past. I explained that our apartment is small, and we didn't have room for her long-term. I offered alternatives. I could help her find a sublet, pay for a short-term Airbnb, help cover a deposit on a new place, or assist her with finding another job. She didn't like any of these suggestions and said, "I just need a roof over my head. I don't want to deal with the stress of finding a place right now." Alex immediately said she could move in and that I was being unreasonable. He argued that this was family, and if we had the space, we should help. He said I was putting comfort above compassion, and that refusing was cold. I tried to explain that our apartment literally doesn't have space for another adult without significant disruption. He said I was overthinking and that I needed to prioritize family over convenience. Despite my reservations, my mom arrived with a few suitcases. She stayed in the bedroom we had converted into an office/guest room. And at first, things were okay. But within a few days, it became clear that this temporary stay was going to be longer than expected. She began cooking huge meals without consulting us, leaving dishes piled up and spreading her belongings throughout the apartment. She also started helping with our chores in ways that were disruptive, moving things without asking, rearranging furniture, and giving unsolicited advice about our home. I tried setting boundaries politely. I asked her to limit the kitchen mess, keep her things in her room, and check with us before changing anything in shared spaces. She agreed, but repeatedly failed to follow these rules. Alex would sometimes excuse her behavior, saying she was stressed or that I was too controlling. I explained that this wasn't control. It was about maintaining a functional home environment and protecting our shared space. The situation escalated when my mom started asking me for money, saying her savings weren't enough to cover groceries or bills. I had already offered to help her get set up with a temporary rental or Airbnb, but she said she didn't want to be alone and just needed time to get back on her feet. I explained that providing money for an indefinite stay in our apartment was not sustainable, and that helping her meant setting boundaries and encouraging independence, not letting her live with us indefinitely. Alex again accused me of being heartless and too rigid. It's been 3 weeks, and she's still here. She has begun inviting friends over without consulting us, using our car, and making our routines chaotic. The tension in the apartment is high. Alex argues with me multiple times a day about how to handle my mom. My mom complains about how cold I am, and I feel exhausted and trapped. I have tried to help her in ways that don't compromise our home, helping her search for jobs, covering small expenses, and assisting her in finding temporary housing, but none of this seems to matter to her or Alex. Some friends and family say I'm right to set boundaries and protect my household, while others say I should just let her stay and work it out. I feel guilty for wanting my home and routines to remain stable, but I also feel overwhelmed and frustrated that my efforts to help without letting her move in indefinitely are being dismissed. So, AITA for refusing to let my mother move in with me after she quit her job, even though my partner thinks I'm being cruel for setting limits and insisting on boundaries. AITA for refusing to give my younger sister my expensive wedding dress after she repeatedly disrespected me and insulted my appearance during her wedding planning. I, 30F, got married last year to my husband, Mark, 32M, after being together for 8 years. Our wedding was everything I dreamed of, intimate but elegant, with about 120 guests. I spent a lot of time finding the perfect dress, a vintage-inspired gown that cost me over $3,000, which was a huge expense considering our budget. I absolutely loved it, and it felt like it was made for me. My younger sister, Lily, 26F, has always been competitive with me. She's usually charming, but she has a tendency to make backhanded comments and compare herself to me. When she got engaged about 6 months after I did, she immediately started asking questions about my wedding, the dress, and all the details. I tried to be supportive, but I noticed she wasn't asking for advice. She was scrutinizing everything. A few months ago, Lily casually brought up the idea of wearing my dress for her wedding. I laughed and told her it was a one-of-a-kind gown and it had sentimental value for me. She insisted, saying it would be perfect for her, that I could even attend wearing a different dress. I politely said no, explaining that the dress was personal and irreplaceable, but she kept pressing the issue. The tension escalated when she began making subtle comments about my appearance and choices. She said things like, "I hope I look better in my dress than you did in yours," and "You looked nice, but it wasn't really me." She also asked if she could borrow some ideas for my wedding decor and flowers. I tried to set boundaries, saying that she should plan her wedding in a way that reflects her own style rather than copying mine. A month ago, I hosted a small bridal shower for her at my house. During the event, she made several pointed remarks. She criticized my makeup on my wedding day, my choice of bridesmaids' dresses, and even my engagement ring. She then brought up my dress again, saying, "It's just sitting in your closet collecting dust. Surely you could let me wear it. You wouldn't even notice it's gone." I felt blindsided and hurt. I told her again that it was off limits, but she brushed it off, claiming I was overreacting. 2 weeks later, Lily texted me asking if she could at least try on my dress. I said no, explaining once more that it was personal and I was not comfortable sharing it. She then accused me of being selfish and not supporting her big day. I tried to explain that supporting her meant respecting my boundaries, but she kept arguing. She even went so far as to tell Mark that I was being unreasonable and that I was trying to make her wedding about me. I've also started hearing through mutual friends that she's been posting on social media, implying that I'm stingy and uncaring. Some family members have started asking why I won't give her the dress, and I feel caught in the middle. I've offered to help her find a similar gown or take her shopping for a new dress, but she insists it's not the same and that she deserves it because I had mine first. Lily's wedding is in 3 months, and she has continued to guilt-trip me via text, phone calls, and even through our parents claiming that I'm ruining her dream and that she can't believe her own sister won't help. Mark has been supportive and says that my feelings are valid, but he's worried about the family drama escalating further. I've spent hours trying to reason with her and compromise, but she refuses anything that doesn't involve her wearing my dress. I love my sister, and I want her to have an amazing wedding, but I cannot let her have something that is deeply personal to me, especially after she has repeatedly insulted me and dismissed my feelings. Now, some relatives are saying that I'm being petty and selfish for refusing to give her the dress, and others understand my perspective and say that a wedding dress is more than just a garment. It's a sentimental piece of a milestone in someone's life. I feel guilty because I don't want to create tension within the family, but I also feel like my boundaries are being completely ignored. So, AITA for refusing to give my younger sister my expensive wedding dress after she repeatedly disrespected me and insulted my appearance during her wedding planning. AITA for refusing to help my sister with her wedding after she deliberately excluded me from the planning. This is going to be long, so I'll try to keep it organized. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Jenna, 25F. We've always had a somewhat complicated relationship. Growing up, we were close at times, but there was always this undercurrent of competition, mostly because our parents were extremely strict about grades and achievements. Jenna often felt like she was in my shadow, which I understood, and I tried to be supportive. As adults, I feel like we've drifted, but I still genuinely cared about her. Fast forward to last year, Jenna got engaged. At first, I was thrilled. I wanted to be involved in the wedding planning because I genuinely wanted to help, but things started off awkward. When she announced the engagement, she made a big deal about having just the girls come over to celebrate and explicitly told me not to bring anyone else, even our mom, because it was her special moment. I was okay with this and went alone. A few weeks later, she started sharing her wedding plans on a private group chat with her closest friends, and I noticed something odd. I wasn't included in the chat. I asked her about it, and she said, "Oh, I thought you'd be busy with work. I didn't want to bother you with the details." I thought that was a bit off because she had reached out to others multiple times, but I brushed it off, assuming it was just an oversight. Then the planning got weirder. She asked our mom and a few friends to help with specific tasks like dress shopping, picking the venue decor, and coordinating with vendors, but never me. At this point, I began to feel hurt. I tried talking to her about it, asking if she wanted me involved, and her response was dismissive. "I just don't need your input. You'll probably just stress me out." That stung, especially because I'd always been someone who tries to stay calm and organized. I decided to step back, thinking maybe she really just wanted to handle things herself. About 3 months ago, Jenna asked me for help with something specific. She needed someone to drive her bridal party to an out-of-town fitting. I agreed because it was a one-time thing and didn't require me to be deeply involved in planning. When I got there, it became obvious that she had purposely scheduled it at a time when I couldn't attend the next major fittings or dress shopping with the other bridesmaids. Later, she told me, "It's better this way. You wouldn't like the other dresses anyway." I started to feel like she was systematically excluding me, and it really hurt. Fast forward to 2 weeks ago. She asked me to help with the seating arrangements. I told her I wasn't comfortable doing it because I had been excluded from the other planning stages, and I didn't want to overstep at this point. Her reaction was dramatic. She accused me of being selfish and not caring about her happiness. She even sent me a long text about how her whole family expects me to step up and that she can't believe I'm making this about me. At this point, I was fed up. Here's where things escalate. Last week, she asked me to host the bridal shower at my apartment. Hosting a bridal shower is something I'd normally be happy to do. But considering how she had excluded me from the planning, and also because my apartment is quite small and not suitable for the 20-plus people she expected, I politely declined. I offered to help in other ways, like organizing games or helping with food, but she said hosting was the bare minimum she expected from me and implied that if I didn't, I wasn't really supporting her. I told her I couldn't host, and her response was to publicly post on social media about family members who just don't care, tagging me. She also told our parents that I was being unreasonable. This has led to a lot of tension in the family. My parents called me, saying I should just do it for Jenna, but honestly, I feel like she's deliberately pushing me away and setting me up to be blamed. I decided to step back completely. I haven't RSVP'd to any of the remaining pre-wedding events, and I haven't offered to help with anything else. Our relationship has become really tense, and I feel like if I try to be involved now, I'll just be seen as doing it out of obligation rather than care. The problem is that now other family members are starting to get involved, and some of them are upset with me. My cousin said, "It's your sister. Just put your feelings aside for one day." My mom said, "This isn't about feelings. It's about family loyalty." But I genuinely feel like my loyalty has been questioned and that my feelings are being ignored in favor of someone else's idea of what I should be doing. I even consider trying to mend things by apologizing, but I'm not sure what I would be apologizing for. I feel like my sister has made this impossible by deliberately excluding me, and now she's trying to make me the villain. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to help with parts of my sister's wedding after she purposefully left me out of planning and then pressure me into tasks I'm uncomfortable with. I want to be there for my sister, but I also feel like she's not considering my feelings and is punishing me for setting boundaries. I don't want to make the wedding about me, but at the same time, I feel like I'm being forced to choose between my self-respect and family expectations. I know this is complicated, but I genuinely feel stuck. AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she embarrassed me in front of my friends. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emily, 24F, who has always been a little dramatic. Growing up, she was the golden child of my parents, always praised for her achievements, while I was more low-key. I never really held it against her because, well, we're sisters, but it definitely shaped our dynamic. She's always been demanding, and our family tends to indulge her. I consider myself more independent and not as interested in family drama. Fast forward to last year, Emily got engaged to her long-term boyfriend, Mark. When she announced her engagement, she immediately started planning a lavish wedding. She wanted a huge ceremony with over 200 guests at a fancy hotel in our city. I was happy for her, but I also knew that our parents had already spent a lot supporting both of us through school, and my parents had mentioned they were stretched financially. Emily, however, insisted that the wedding had to be extravagant, and she expected me to contribute financially. She said it would be my sisterly duty to help pay for the wedding, citing the fact that I had a well-paying job and lived comfortably. I have a stable job in tech and do make good money, but I live alone in a city with a high cost of living, student loans, and other responsibilities. I was planning to help her in other ways, like assisting with planning, helping to coordinate vendors, and hosting small pre-wedding events, but I was not comfortable giving her a large sum of money. When I politely told her that I couldn't contribute financially beyond a modest gift, she got upset and started guilt-tripping me. She claimed I was selfish and didn't support her dreams. I tried to explain that support doesn't have to be monetary, but she refused to hear it. As the wedding planning continued, Emily became more controlling and demanding. She wanted me to attend dress fittings with her, which I agreed to, but she also expected me to take days off work for appointments. She would text me constantly about minor details, sometimes in the middle of the night, and when I suggested that she respect boundaries, she accused me of being uncaring and lazy. About 2 months before the wedding, Emily invited a few of my friends to the bridal shower. I wasn't thrilled about the idea because some of them aren't particularly close to Emily and I didn't want any tension. During the shower, Emily tried to create a perfect Instagram moment, and in the process, she made a huge scene over something trivial. One of my friends accidentally spilled a drink. Emily started yelling, crying, and publicly shaming my friend for being clumsy and ruining everything. I was mortified. My friends were shocked, and several of them later pulled me aside to ask if this was normal behavior. I tried to calm Emily down, but she wouldn't stop. She kept pointing at me and saying, "You should have disciplined them," as if it were my responsibility. After that incident, I decided I needed to set firmer boundaries. I told Emily I would help with planning and support her emotionally, but I would not be financially contributing beyond a reasonable gift, and I would not be responsible for managing other people's behavior at events. Emily reacted badly, saying that I was ruining her wedding and turning our friends against her. She even suggested that if I wasn't willing to pay, maybe I shouldn't be invited to the wedding at all. I was shocked, but I didn't back down. 2 weeks before the wedding, my parents tried to mediate, saying that Emily was stressed and that I should consider giving her some money. I calmly explained my position again, emphasizing that I could not afford to contribute a large sum without risking my financial stability. My parents seemed to understand, but warned me that Emily would be upset. The wedding day arrived, and everything was as extravagant as Emily had planned. I attended, dressed nicely, and helped where I could. During the reception, Emily gave a toast, and to my horror, she included a long story about me supposedly betraying her by refusing to pay for the wedding. She portrayed me as selfish and ungrateful in front of all our family, friends, and colleagues. People were whispering and giving me awkward looks, and I felt humiliated. I tried to laugh it off and enjoy the celebration, but I was deeply hurt. After the wedding, Emily continued to send me passive-aggressive texts, implying that I had ruined her special day and questioning whether I even cared about her. I have since cut down on communication because I don't want to be treated as a scapegoat. My parents are disappointed, but supportive of me setting boundaries. Some extended family members have reached out to me privately, saying they think Emily overreacted and that I am not at fault, while a few mutual friends have expressed discomfort at the way Emily publicly shamed me during her toast. I feel like I did the right thing by setting financial boundaries and refusing to be manipulated, but I also feel guilty because my sister is clearly upset. So, AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding and setting boundaries, even though she embarrassed me in front of our friends and family. AITA for refusing to let my brother and his family move in with me indefinitely after they lost their home. Even though my husband thinks I'm overreacting, I, 34F, have been married to my husband, Daniel, 36M, for 9 years. We have 3 children, 8, 5, and 2. We live in a 4-bedroom house in a suburban area. I work full-time as a registered nurse, and Daniel works as a software developer. Our house is cozy, but not huge, and we've built routines around the kids' school, naps, homework, and our work-from-home days. It's a bit chaotic with 3 kids, but it's manageable because we've kept a structured system. My brother, Ryan, 32M, has a wife, Megan, 31F, and 2 children, 6 and 3. They recently lost their rental due to unpaid bills, and Megan is pregnant again. They came to us, saying they had nowhere to go, and asked if they could move in temporarily until we get back on our feet. They made it sound like a week or 2. I was sympathetic. I love my brother and his family, but immediately thought about the reality. Adding 2 adults, 3 kids, and another on the way into our home would completely disrupt our routines and space. I told Ryan and Megan that we couldn't host them long-term, but we could help in other ways. I offered to help them find a short-term rental, cover some of the upfront costs, help them search for jobs, and even take care of the kids a few hours a week while they sorted out housing. I also told them that if they came over, it could only be for a clearly defined short period, a few nights, maybe a week, while we figured out permanent housing. Ryan immediately got defensive, saying that we were family and that families stick together in times of crisis. Megan said that finding another place would take forever and that staying with you is the only option right now. I tried explaining that I wasn't refusing to help. I was just trying to provide help in a way that was sustainable for everyone. I also mentioned that we don't have the space to comfortably host them long-term. They both got upset and accused me of turning my back on family and caring more about convenience than helping loved ones. Daniel, however, completely disagreed with me. He said it was ridiculous to deny family a place to stay when they were in crisis. He accused me of being cold and overly rigid, saying that if we have space, it should be used to help those we love. I explained that it's not about being cold. It's about maintaining a functional household and protecting our family from unnecessary stress. He said I was making everything about control and not being compassionate. Despite my objections, Ryan and Megan arrived the next day with all their belongings. They brought their 2 kids and an infant carrier for the baby on the way. At first, things were manageable. They stayed in the guest room, and we rotated the kids between living spaces. But within a few days, the situation became chaotic. Ryan and Megan began using our kitchen extensively without consulting us, leaving dishes piled up and taking over spaces we had designated for our children's toys and belongings. They also started giving us unsolicited parenting advice and criticized our routines, saying we were too strict or controlling. I tried to enforce boundaries calmly. They had to respect our house rules, clean up after themselves, and not interfere with our children's schedules. Megan would agree, but then ignore them, saying she was overwhelmed or needed space for the kids. Ryan sometimes ignored rules intentionally and said things like, "This is temporary. We should be able to live comfortably here." Daniel again defended them, saying I was too harsh and making them feel unwelcome. The situation escalated further when they began inviting friends over without asking, borrowing our car, and leaving their laundry everywhere. Megan would leave her kids with me for hours without checking if I could manage them while she ran errands. I reminded them several times that while we want to help, we cannot function as their full-time caregivers or live with them indefinitely. They started arguing with me, saying I don't understand what it's like to be homeless and I should just let them stay. Daniel again sided with them, accusing me of prioritizing comfort over family and being selfish. It's now been 3 weeks, and Ryan and Megan still haven't made plans for alternative housing. Their behavior has caused tension and stress in our household. Our kids have noticed the stress and disruptions, and our relationship is strained because Daniel and I argue multiple times a day about how to handle the situation. I've tried helping them find temporary apartments, offered financial assistance for deposits, and even helped them search for jobs, but Daniel insists that allowing them to stay indefinitely is the right thing to do. Friends and some family members say I'm right to set boundaries and protect my household, but others say I should just open my home because it's family. I feel guilty for wanting to maintain the structure and stability of my own household, but I also feel trapped and frustrated that my efforts to help them without letting them move in indefinitely are being dismissed. So, AITA for refusing to let my brother and his family move in with us indefinitely after they lost their home. Even though my husband thinks I'm overreacting and says I'm being selfish for setting boundaries. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.